Hey, this is Kurt. Welcome to another ScriptCards video. This time we're going to take a deep dive and look at an enhanced version of the Magic Missile script that was in the first video and is part of the ScriptCards wiki page. Before we do that, I want to give a shout out to my patron supporters. These guys are really the reason that ScriptCards exists and the reason I've been updating it so rapidly over the last couple of weeks. They get early access to the new features that I implement and have a lot of input on where I go with developing new features. So thank you guys, and let's move on to actually implementing this new version of the Magic Missile script. Let's jump over to our game, and what I'm going to do is I've got my standard game set up here. Let me move this sideways so we can see all of our tokens. I'm going to use an empty notepad window to build the script, and I'm going to cheat. I'm going to cut and paste things from a script I've already put together off screen. But that way you're not just sitting here watching me type instead of talking about the details of what we're actually doing. So here's our empty window. We're going to start off with our standard opener, script card, open brackets and close brackets. All right. So the first thing we want to put in here, let's go ahead and this is straight from the original card. We're just going to copy over, the original script rather. We're just going to copy over the title, the source token, and the target token. So the number sign, hashtag, whatever you call it, depending on probably how old you are, is our set a property for this card. And so we're going to set the title, and the text we're going to set title to is Magic Missile. Anytime we make a setting, we use the settings statement type, what setting we want to modify, and after the vertical bar, the value we want to put there. So title, source token, target token. When you have a source token or a target token or emote text, you get an emote above your output card with the characters, tokens, and whatever text is between them. Again, straight out of the card we had last time around. All right, let's open up a little space, because the next thing we're going to do is we're going to call a function that we haven't written yet. And technically, I guess it's a procedure because it doesn't return any values. But the procedure we're going to call is get and check slot information. So one of the things we're going to do with this improved Magic Missile script is after we ask the caster what spell slot level do they want to use, we're going to check to see if they have slots of that level. You don't want your level 5 wizard telling you he's going to cast this Magic Missile at 9th level. So we're going to prevent that from happening. So we're going to call, this is a procedure call statement type, and the procedure we're going to call is get and check slot information. So before we do that, before we implement that procedure though, let's put in a couple of spaces and put an exit command here. And the reason we want to do that is while we're playing with this script and testing things out, we don't want to get to, running everything we've implemented thus far and then have it start running the procedures that we are going to write down below. That wouldn't make sense for the card or for the script itself. So we just want to exit when we get to this point. Everything below here is going to be subroutines. So let's look at how we would implement this get and check spell level, slot level. And I'm going to paste the whole thing in here, and then I'm going to talk about what we're doing. All right, so the colon is a label statement type. So this is the marker that this is the subroutine name that we're going to call, or that we're implementing here. And really, it's fairly straightforward. Equals is set a role variable. We're going to set a role variable called slot level, and we're going to set it to the result of asking the user what spell slot level they want to use. And there are a couple different ways we could have done this. So we could have just said spell slot level and let them type in whatever they want, but then you run the risk of them putting in that they want to use a 29th level spell slot to cast their spell, or spell slot Fred level. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to not limit their input to the 9 values that we can actually deal with. So that's what this whole, vertical bar and then the numbers after it do. So once we get that from the user, which happens on the chat server, it's not part of the ScriptCards process itself. The chat server will process that and just give us a number. So whatever the user picks, this will actually end up reading, spell slot 4, because we don't see that role query. We're going to set another variable called slots total. And we're going to use this notation, the *s:, which means we're going to look up an attribute on the character we've defined as the source character. So up here we set the source token. And one of the reasons we did that is because now we can use *s:, to look up attributes on that character. So the attribute we want to look up is called LVL and then a number, which is going to get filled in by the slot level that the user selected, _slots _ total. And I know I was highlighting the wrong line, but it's same text. So LVL, slot level, slots total. So what this will end up looking like is something like LVL1 slots total. And left off an L. So if we were to look at the character sheet in Roll20, that is the attribute that tells you how many spell slots this character has available level 1. If we put in a 4 here, it would be how many level 4 spell slots the character has available. And those show up on the character sheet as your total slots I'll go ahead and bring it up real quick. Let me find my cursor here. We open this character, and sometimes that takes a minute. There we go. Ooh, Roll20 is running slow for me today. All right, so that slots total, here's your level 1 slots total, level 2 slots total, and level 3 slots total. And while I'm in here, I might as well mention that even though the heading here says slots remaining, if you look at the actual attributes on the character sheet, and we'll scroll all the way down, because these for me are at the bottom of this character, the actual attributes are slots expended. So the two names don't really match, and I guess it would depend on what other API scripts and settings you've got running. I'm treating these as what they say in the attribute names. So if you are fresh off of a full long rest, I'm saying you have 0 slots expended for each spell level. And then as you cast spells, we're going to add to the slots expended number. All right, so let's hop back over to our script here. And so speaking of slots expended, the next thing we're going to do is get that slots expended number for the same spell level from the character sheet. So after these two lines, we'll have two variables: slots total, which is how many spell slots for the level they selected the character has, and slots expended, how many of those slots they've used. So then we can we can check and see, so conditional, the question mark is a conditional. The slots expended total, how many slots have been expended, is it greater than or equal to the total slots the character has of that level? So if they have 4 slots and they've cast 4 spells, we're going to go to no slots left. We're going to jump conditionally, but not as a subroutine. We're just going to jump to that other label. If that's not true, we're just going to fall through and we're going to return back to where we were. So we will come back up after this call to this function. Now we have to implement the no slots left. So create our label. And now what do we want to do? When the character is out of spell slots, we want to do 2 things. We want to tell them that they cannot cast the magic missile spell because they don't have any slots available. So we'll output a direct output line as the plus. We're going to output the character's name for the source character, has no level, and then we're going to fill in the spell slot level, And then we're going to say spell slots available. All right. And finally, we're just going to exit the script. We don't need to do anything else here because we're not going to let them cast the spell. So we're done at that point. Let's go ahead back up to, so we've either gotten a spell slot that we're going to return to the rest of the script, or we've aborted casting the spell and exited the script. So if we didn't exit the script because they don't have any spell slots, we're going to return back up to the line after get and check slot information was called. So I'm going to paste the next section in here, and this is copied straight from the original Magic Missile macro. So there's nothing out of the ordinary here. But I will go through each line and I'll say, we're going to assign a variable called missile count to slot level +2. So we came back with a variable called slot level from our subroutine. And in 5th edition D&D, and actually you couldn't use higher level spell slots in previous editions. So in 5th edition D&D, the number of missiles you get when you cast Magic Missile is equal to 2 plus the slot level, because you get 3 missiles at first level and then 1 extra one for every level beyond that. So we now have our display count being set. So this is our output of each missile. We're just going to give it a number, and we're going to start at 1. We're going to set our missile damage variable to 0. So total, before we run anything, this missile hasn't done any damage, or this spell hasn't done any damage. We're going to set our left sub to the slot level we're casting with, and our right sub to ranged attack. But in this case, we'll probably never see that ranged attack because we're going to replace it later, and I'll show you that too. And then the emote text, again, copied straight from the previous one. Character name uses a level whatever spell slot to fire however many missiles of magical force. So that's, again, verbatim from the other script. So what do we want to do next? We've gotten a spell slot level. We need to go ahead and fire our missiles. And again, we're going to take this more or less straight from the other script. So we'll paste in here. Where am I? All right, so we're going to set up a label called missile loop that we're going to go back to while we're firing missiles. We're going to call a subroutine called fire missile. We're going to increase the display count by 1 every time we do that. And then we're going to check to see if the display count is still less than or equal to the number of missiles we're going to fire. And if it is, we're going to jump back to missile loop. So that'll just go in a circle, adding 1 to display count every time until we've reached the number of missiles we were going to fire. And then we're going to output the total damage. So the total damage of the missile is equal to missile damage. Now we haven't done anything with missile damage yet because we need to implement this fire missile subroutine. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to say it again. This is more or less straight from the previous macro. So we're going to come down here after our no slots left, and we're going to paste in our fire missile subroutine. It's got the label that lets us get to it. We're going to create a variable called this missile and set it to 1d4 plus 1. That's how much damage a magic missile does in D&D. We're going to take missile damage current value, which starts at 0. We're going to add this missile to it and store it back in missile damage. So every time we run this subroutine, we're going to roll 1d4 plus 1 and add it to our missile damage variable. And then we're going to say, we're going to output with a direct output statement, missile, the display count total, so the missile number, hits for the missile, this missile, which is how much damage we did, the 1d4 plus 1, and just force damage, and we're going to bold force. And then we're going to return. So this loop is now complete. If we were to go ahead and run this, let's do that right now. Been a while since we actually did anything actually executing. Go ahead and do this. It'll ask us to pick a target and a spell slot level. So let's pick level 9. this character doesn't have any level 9 spell slots. So we should get the response that says, you can't do that. You don't have any level 9 spell slots. All right. Let's run it again. And let's just pick level 1, our target first. Pick a level 1 spell slot. And here we go. We get our 3 missiles and then our total damage. So 6 and 5 is 11. All right, so far looks almost identical to what we had before, except that we've added the ability to stop the user from casting the spell if they don't have a slot available. So what do we want to do next? So let's return. I'm going to open up a little more space down here, just so we know that this is our separation between our code and our subroutines. So the next thing we want to do is go ahead and they've now used the spell slot. Let's take that spell slot away. So after we've output the total damage, we're going to call another subroutine we're going to write called Deduct Spell Slot. So let's go down and implement that. And this is actually fairly straightforward. We're going to do this using another API script called chat set attr. And we'll just put it at the bottom here. So here's our deduct spell slot label, so we can call the procedure. We're going to create a variable called slots expended. I'm sorry, we already have a variable called slots expended. We got that when we selected the spell level. So we're going to add 1 to slots expended. So whatever we had before, we're going to add 1 to it, put it back in slots expended. Then we're going to make an API call. That's the @ symbol sign. We're going to call the API script we're going to run is set attr. And then we're going to pass it these parameters. And when you call an API script with, sorry, my email is going off in the background. When you call an API script, a lot of scripts require the 2 dashes that we use to separate lines in ScriptCards. So we can't include those in our parameters. So what we do is we put an underscore there instead. And when ScriptCards processes this line, if the underscore is either at the beginning of the line or is preceded by a space, it'll be converted to 2 dashes. So this one in front of the character ID will be converted because it's at the beginning of the line. This one in front of level will be converted because it's at the beginning of the word. It's got a space in front of it. But these that don't have spaces in front of them won't. So let's put those back to underscores. All right. And so we're passing character ID. We're referencing the source character's character ID. The attribute we want to modify is level, then the number slots expended. And then for the particular syntax for set attr, you do a vertical bar after the name of the attribute, and then what value you want to put in there. And we're going to put our new slots expended total there. And then finally, we're going to pass silent along to the script so that it doesn't output anything about what it did. I think by default, if you don't pass silent, it'll pop up a message that says, chat set attr, set the attribute on this character for this attribute to this value. We don't want to do that. We want to keep the clean look of the cards that we're outputting. So we're going to pass silent. And then we're going to create a variable called slots remaining. And that's just going to equal the slot total minus our new value of slots expended. So if I had expended 1 slot before I cast a spell, now I've got slots expended equal to 2. If I have 4 spell slots, I'm going to get 4 minus 2. I have 2 available slots left of first level. And then we're just going to jump back to wherever we came from, which is going to be under the deduct spell slot. So now that we've got our slots remaining value, we can go ahead and update our write sub setting to say, okay, you cast this spell, now you have this many level 1 spell slots left. A little more useful than just saying ranged attack. And up next, we're going to talk about playing video and audio effects. And the way we're going to do this, we're going to write a subroutine that will play all of our effects for us using parameters. And you could take this subroutine, copy it out of this script, put it in any other script, and then just call it. So this is actually going to be fairly useful down the road. So our subroutine we're going to write and going to call is going to be called play effects. And this time we are going to pass parameters in because we want to make this reusable. We want to be able to use it in all of our other scripts. And the parameters we're going to pass in, what this subroutine is going to do is play a video effect on the source token, on the target token, between the two tokens from the source to the target, and it's going to play an audio effect. So we need to pass in what are the 3 video effects we want to play and what is the audio we want to play. So we're going to say none for the effect we're going to play on the source token. Magic Missile doesn't make a whole lot of sense to play a video effect on the caster. On the target, we're going to play burst. I'm just picking random effects here. You can do it whatever you want to do. Burst smoke. So we're going to get like a billowy white burst out of the target. Between the two, from the source towards the target, we're going to do a beam of magic. And then finally, the sound effect we want to play. And I've got a sound in my game called Spell 01. And I guess we need to take a short detour here to talk about Roll20 Audio Master, sound effects, and how they all work. So I want to show you the site that I quite like, opengameart.org. This site has a lot of graphics and things that you can use. It's designed for people developing video games, but one of their categories is sound effects. And, you know, they've got pages and pages. As you can see here, there's 1,242 sound effect submissions. So a lot of the sound effects, and most of those have multiple effects in one submission. You see there's 54 sounds here, 51 here, 37. You know, some more useful than others, but a lot of good stuff out here. And for the purposes of this demonstration script, I've gone out and I've grabbed a couple of CC0, which is essentially public domain sounds that folks have uploaded to this site. Highly recommend opengameart.org. It's a really cool site. So back here, I'll go to my sounds tab, and I've added a bunch of stuff here. And here is that Spell 01 effect that I've uploaded, and I'll just play it real quick. All right, so just a little impact sound. But we don't play things directly out of the jukebox. We use Roll20 Audio Master to do it. And so you have to have the Roll20 AM script installed in your game, and you have to have imported your jukebox. So if I do Roll20 AM, and that is case sensitive, it has to be roll in lowercase and AM in uppercase. Config, I get my Roll20 AM menu. Biggest issue people run into when trying to use Roll20 AM is that they haven't imported their track list. So you can go and you can copy all the music and sound effects you want up to your jukebox, but if you don't come in and run the config and then hit import jukebox, Roll20 Audio Master doesn't know you have them, so it can't play them. So I've already done that. I've imported my jukebox. I'm ready to go. So I'm going to clear this out. I'll leave it there for now. And we'll talk about how we're going to play these video and audio effects. So we're going to write another subroutine. So we'll come down to the bottom here, and I'm going to grab the effect subroutine and paste it into our notepad window. And again, we're going to talk about every line in the subroutine. So, play effects is the name of the label, and You can have comments after that. So my comments are just a list of the parameters that this subroutine accepts. So the parameters are the source token effect, the target token effect, a line effect, and a sound effect. So to play a video effect with script cards, the statement type is V for video effects. And then you have two possibilities, token or between tokens. If you use token, you supply one token ID and then the name of a Roll20 video effect. And let me pop back over into Roll20 real quick and show you what I mean there. We bring up the effects tool. We have all these different effects we can use, and then we have all these, they call them colors, I believe. So if we do a bomb of charm, we get that effect. Let's do a burst. All right. So when we specify what we're going to pass into our video effects, we need to use the shape of the effect and then the color of the effect, all lowercase, separated by a dash. So burst dash charm or nova dash fire will produce a big fire explosion, right? So we would specify that as nova dash fire. And if you specify something that doesn't exist, you end up getting a fire burst. So if you are wondering, you passed in a value, but it's showing up as a fire burst, why? It's probably because you have a capital letter in there or something like that. Our special keyword none that we're passing in tells script cards that even though you're running the v token command, you don't want to actually create an effect there. So back to our script here. We're going to run vToken on the selected token and pass in the first parameter, which is source effect. Then we're going to run vToken on the target token and pass in the second parameter, which is the effect to play at the target. Then we're going to run vToken or v again, but this time we're going to select between tokens as the modifier. We're going to supply two token IDs, the from and the to, so from the source or from the selected token to the target token, and the third parameter, which is the line effect. And again, all of these are specified by shape of the effect dash color of the effect. So this would be breath dash acid, or I think we're using, what are we using here? Beam dash magic. There are, I believe, 3 effects types that are between tokens. Breath, beam, and I believe missile. But I could be wrong about that. So anyway, we're just passing those right along to the script and generating them. And then finally, we're going to use an API call to call Roll20 Audio Master. Pass it minus audio, because that's going to get replaced with 2 minus signs. Audio, play without a menu, and then a vertical bar, and then the name of the track we want to play. So and then we're going to return from this subroutine. So if we go back up here, we're going to see we're going to play nothing on the source token. We're going to play a burst of smoke on the target token. We're going to create a beam of magic from the source token to the target token. And we're going to use a sound effect of spell 01. So again, we could pass in, if we only wanted to play an audio effect, it would be much more reasonable just to call the Roll20 Audio Master right here. But technically, we could pass in none, and then the name of the audio effect. But that gives us a flexible play effects subroutine that we can use in all of our scripts. All right, so what is next? Actually, before we move on, let's go ahead and see what this looks like at this point. We'll copy everything, select our cast. Oh, got to go back to the selection thing. Select our caster, paste in our macro. It'll ask us to select a target. We'll select one. We cast a level 1 magic missile. And you heard the sound, you saw the video effects, and now we have level 1 spell slots left, 2 on the title of the output card. So let's run that again. And same target, level 1 spell slot. And once again, now we have level 1 spell slots remaining 1. I'm going to cast it one more time. At a level 1. And now it tells us we have 0 level 1 spell slots left. So if we were to try that again, oh, I didn't select target or select a character. Try that again, it's going to tell us you don't have any spell slots. You can't do this. All right. So I actually have a macro here that resets all of the spell slot levels. So I'm going to run that real quick. Oh, I keep forgetting to select him. All right. And then I have another macro that gives me a report of the spell slots that the character has remaining. So we can see that he's got all of his spell slots there. So back to developing our script. What do we want to do next? So now that we've got all of our effects playing, we've rolled all of our damage, let's go ahead and apply that damage to the target. And we're going to do this in one of two different ways. And I'll show you how to do it with both Token-Mod and with Alterbars. So we've played our effects. We're going to apply some damage. Let's start out with Token-Mod, only because it is on one click. So it's more likely that you'll have Token-Mod installed than Alterbars. We'll go ahead and do this. We're going to call a procedure that we're going to write called apply damage token mod. And we're going to pass in token ID of the target, what bar number we're going to modify, and then what we're going to do with that bar. We're going to subtract, that's the minus sign. We're going to subtract the missile damage, which is our total missile damage that the spell has done. So let's go ahead and look at how we write this apply damage token mod. And it's actually very easy. We're just going to call the token mod. We're just going to call the token mod API command. So here's our label. Again, comments on what the parameters are. So when you're looking at this later, you know what to pass in. Use an API call to token mod. Ignore selected. Probably don't really need to do that, but I like to put that in there anyway. Pass it some IDs. The ID we're going to pass it is the token ID of the target. What are we going to do? We're going to set bar, and then whatever we pass to the second parameter, so bar 3, value, vertical bar, and what we want to set that value to, which is going to be minus, and then how much damage the missile did. So one of the caveats of using token mod is that players by default cannot run token mod using the IDs command or parameter. There's a checkbox on the one-click settings for token mod to allow them to do so. But by default, they can't modify tokens except their own, because it would be the selected token. So then we just return. We've assigned the damage and we return. And let's go ahead and see that run. Copy this whole thing again. Paste it in. And our caster is going to keep picking on this Gorgon down here. And level 1 spell slot. And you see we did 8 points of damage, and our Gorgon's hit points have dropped from 98 to 90. So our damage was applied by token mod. So if you don't use Token-Mod and you use Alterbars, let's take a look at how we would implement that. And it's more or less identical. I'm going to change this to Alter Bars. And then I'm going to go down here and bring in the alter bar. Function. Excuse me, function. And I did not put parameters on here, so token ID, bar number, and amount. And again, same parameters. So we didn't have to change anything in how we called it in order to use alter bar, but our command is a little different. API call to alter, minus target, the target token, what bar we want to modify, which is the second parameter, which is 3, and the amount we want to modify it by, which will be minus missile damage. So works exactly the same way in as far as how we call it, just passing different parameters onto a different API script if we're using Token-Mod or Alterbars. So let's run that, and you can see that it is actually going to use Alterbars to subtract the damage this time. Place it in here. Select the Gorgon again. A level 1 spell. We get our effects. We get our sound effect. We did 9 damage now. We see Alterbars telling us the NPC took 9 damage. And our hit points for our Gorgon have dropped to 81. And it doesn't hurt us at all to leave both of these functions in the script because we're not calling one of the two. We wouldn't want to call both of them because then the NPC would take twice as much damage. If we were to, apply with Alterbars and apply with Token-Mod, we'd be doing double damage for our magic missile. So let's run one more demo here. Run magic missile again. Got to copy it in. And this character has 3rd level spell slots. So we'll pick a 3rd level slot to get 5 missiles this time instead of 3. And there we go. 17 points of damage, which was deducted from the Gorgon's health total. All right, so that's about as far as I've taken the magic missile script in, counting for spell slots, subtracting the damage from the target's hit points. Again, you don't have to use bar 3. Some people I know use bar 1 for their hit point totals. So the only thing you'd have to change is up in this call to either Alterbars or Token-Mod, bar 1 instead of bar 3. I like bar 3 because it's red. Reminds me of hit point bars from other games. Excuse me. So I will include the code for this extended macro either down in the description for the video, or if it doesn't fit properly there, I'll put it somewhere else where you can get to it. And as a special bonus, I'll include my reset spell slots and spell slot report macros here as well. They're just something I was using to test because, as you can imagine, while I'm firing magic missiles to deduct spell slots to make sure all that's working, it was a pain to go back into the character sheet and change those numbers every time. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.